How you doing, guys? U.S. Air Force salute to all my veterans and fellow Christians and everybody else out there. Pedlar Pete here to talk to you about Pedlar and Divinity, George Whitefield and the Great Awakening by Frank Lambert. Awesome read, and I love George Whitefield. I identify with him in a lot of ways that I'm a very unique individual. I present myself a different way, and in my business, I run an auction business, and I go by the name Pedlar Pete. Well, I'm like, wow, kind of identify with the guy as far as just in my life, whether I've been in the political arena or wherever I've done, but I've always taken a different tactic with people. And so reading this one here, I said, well, Pedlar, Divinity, well, heck, I got to take that one up and check it out. So I did, and Frank Lambert, he focuses on more how the George Whitefield mixes his evangelism with entrepreneurialism, and and getting the gospel out. He used to advantage the press, the printers, the publishers, and he also carried with him. He was armed with an arsenal of his literature, pamphlets, journals. These sold. Even some printers were doing stuff like portraits of him and stuff that they sold. I was checking that out. Really interesting. But, he had his opponents. And people didn't like his style. They didn't like his beliefs, some of them. It was still a very new thing where you had your own way of praying to God. You didn't have to go through a clergy. You didn't have to go through directly through the church, Old Testament way. It was, you had a personal relationship with Christ. You didn't have to get that from a preacher. You could get that under a tree in your backyard. And he had his opponents. He had Ebenezer Erskine and other people within the ministry. He was a Scottish evangelist down in the Carolinas, and he was actually banned from preaching in church down there. George Whitefield said, hey, you know what? I'll barnstorm. I'll take this to the streets. I'll get the people out here. The one thing I've noticed is when you tell people that something's forbidden and that something is, you can't do this, they tend to rebel. Just take a look at what Donald Trump right now going on with that, and you see that people are rebelling, and you see where a lot of Dems have flipped in support of Trump Republican side. You see swing states that are going back the red route with the Republicans and Trump. When you tell people they're censored, can't do that, that's no bueno to a lot of people. Don't tell me how to pray. I want to interpret the Bible my way. And when people were coming here during the 16th, 17th century up to 18th century, just like in the video we watched, the PBS video, that it was up for grabs. We were creating a new Adam here as far as the way religion, Christianity was going to be interpreted, practiced, the whole 9 yards. What I see with George Whitefield, and what impresses me the most is that he was a visionary. He saw the need of the people. They wanted something different, and he gave it to them, through the Christian gospel being your personal relationship with Christ. But he, like I said, he used kind of like how Trump does right now with the negative media and the left. The more that they try to bash him, sort of like with Whitfield's opponents back then, he used that as his momentum. And that's something I think we can all learn, whether it's in relationships, friendships, everything. business, etc., education. But he actually, like I said, he used that negative and put it to a positive. So I was really, like I said, I'm really, identify with him. Sorry if I'm not at my top peak in the video presenting. But, like I said, people just he'd give them something that they hadn't seen before. And, if you take a second look, like I said, today we have the similar things going on with people. When Trump ran for office for the first time in 2015, leading up to his 2016 election, people hadn't seen anything like that before. People hadn't. They were mind blown. They were blown away. So, boom, here you go. You go back to, Whitfield, and it's the same thing with George Whitefield, that, no one had experienced that before. So it was something new. But, I'm going to read up more on George Whitefield, find out more about him. I absolutely identify with the guy because I'm very unique. As you can see, I wear rings on every finger. I like my jewelry. I've been wearing these necklaces for over 30 years. But, that's the way I do things. I like touching history, so you guys get to know me. I'm really into everything around me is oozing with history. For instance, I had this while I've been doing some of my research. I like holding things, like when I'm doing my studies, I like having things around me that are actually from that period. Like this is now this isn't regarding the gospel, but it's a 1749, and it's a trade point from the fur trade. And this one here is Fort Niagara, 1749. But that was actually, hand forged by an early pioneer fur trader. And these were using, see, it says peace. Over there has the, let me see, it says, let me turn my lamp on for a second. Whoa, bright light, bright light. Hold on. I'm blind. No, it says trade and peace. But, what I was thinking is, that was Fort Niagara, but, who's to say the person who napped this didn't come in contact with the gospel? We don't know. They'll never know that. But I keep things like this around. Like if I'm learning about the Old West, I'll be flipping around a silver Morgan dollar or something. I like having things in hand like that. One thing that I was reading in there that along the same ways that I use my social media accounts to promote my auction business. And this has to do with George Whitefield, that when I'm promoting, I'll write an article or a story. I might be talking about, for instance, the history of tobacco products with sports, and talk about tobacco cards, and I might do a write-up on the internet about it. But it's indirectly promoting my business. And George Whitefield did the same exact thing. He actually, would do articles in the papers. So he used the press to write stories, and that indirectly promoted his revivals. But I'm wanting to dive more into George Whitefield, find out more about how his groundbreaking barnstorming gospel helped fuel the fire, probably one of the main fuelers of the fire for the first Great Awakening. So I'm stoked about that. I'm stoked to learn from the rest of you guys here. So I'm not hard to contact. You can get me on the telephone. It'd be the Pete Petrie hotline right here. You can reach me. Not hard to find. So you can reach me on the through our class and everything. But I'm just a ring-a-ding-ding-ding-ding away. But that's the Pete Petrie bat phone there. But yeah, like I said, guys. But I will tell you real quick. So kind of talk about artifacts and all. This is more modern, like probably like 1960s or so. But it's Wedgwood. And I was reading in Frank Lambert's piece there that you had Josiah Wedgwood was the founder of the Wedgwood Company. Now, I've worked in the auction business, the antique business my whole life, so I'm very familiar with Wedgwood. This company is still around. Anyways, during the same time that George Whitefield was doing his, at the same time George Whitefield was preaching the gospel and setting the tone for the Great Awakening, this man was also doing the same thing. He would go and write stories in the papers. He'd have stories put in the papers using the press to promote his potting business. Hence, plateware, that kind of thing, porcelain, figural, all that stuff. But he did that. Now, this comes from my mother's set that I'm passing to my daughter. But again, I like associating things with history. I wear history on my fingers. That's a 1909 $5 Indian head gold coin ring. But I like wearing my history. That's a Prussian. That's actually 18 karat gold Russian imperial ring from about the 1880s. It's got the signatures on this. I think it's on the inside of this one. But that's Alexandrite there. But yeah, I like wearing my stuff. I like having my relations to history. I like I said, while I'm studying, I like having, little trinkets like this to kind of get me in the mood for it. Like I said, this was 1749. It says peace and trade on it. This was used from the fur traders to trade with the Native Americans. That's the real deal. That's not no knockoff. That's actually a real 1749 fur trade token piece. It's a ceremonial point, but I have other similar ones like here. This one's later. This one's like 1840 something, I think. It's got the Masonic on the peace pipe and hatchet. It's pretty wild. Those were hand carved. Did them like that. I specialize in rare coins. Upper Missouri. This one's 1843. Upper Missouri Union Fur Company. Now this is, of course, quite a bit of ways after. This is going toward the Second Great Awakening, but I like to have stuff like this in my hand. So this one related to what I was talking about here, not directly to the gospel, but the same time period, the 1749. So, I like getting a little creative. Hence, I started up with the fight bell. When I run my auctions, that's kind of the way I am. I'm that guy. I'm going to be doing plenty more videos, so get used to it. I'll even bring in the daggone disco balls, the whole 9 yards, guys. There you go, right there. Boom. And I got Miss Betty Boop, who was keeping me company here during the presentation. Got her hanging out over there. It took me 5 years to find her. She's very rare. They only made about 500 of those torch lamps. She's pretty big, you can see. But yeah, and I got our next president overlooking us there. Well, anyways, guys, appreciate you. U.S. Air Force salute. And you know what? If I bombed out in this video, we'll find out when I get a big fat F messing with you there. All right, guys, be good. God bless.